No speculation surrounding Drew McPherson's safety out of Illinois at 6'1", 190, a top 100 safety in the country. What do we know about Mr. McPherson?
Should be an exciting prospect. He played for a Power in the Chicago area. The Loyola Ramblers, Loyola Academy is a two straight time, I guess I should say. They're two-time defending champions in the Class 8A title, I should say, for the state of Illinois. Really good athletes, played a lot of offense. I don't know how much defense the kids played, and I had a conversation with Drew yet. Hope to get him on the show here at some point. But most of his tape, if you go and look at Hudl, you're going to see a lot of snaps as a running back, a lot of snaps lining up out in the slot. He's not big enough to be a tight end, but he is kind of tall for a back, and he kind of reminds me of a smaller tight end the way he runs. Really crisp route runner, not the fastest, not the quickest. Appears to have good hands, but I don't think he's quick enough, fast enough. Does he have good enough hips to play corner at Iowa? I doubt all of that. I just think just speed standpoint, he's a natural safety, and that sounds like that's what Phil Parker in Iowa envisions him as. So, again, there's a little bit more diversity with the DB position or safety position with Iowa and the cash now, running more 4-2-5 than back in the day with the traditional 4-3 ruling the roost. So who knows where he'll end up, but my guess is he's going to be a little bit of a project, not because he's not got a lot of upside, just because he hasn't got a lot of defensive snaps under his belt. And it sounds like most of the schools that were recruiting him, Mark, wanted him as an offensive player. And they didn't have a lot of other high major offers. In fact, he didn't have any other high major offers unless you're counting MAC schools or Army. He had FCS, MAC, and Army. So I guess I know people criticize that sometimes. We all know that Iowa does a really good job at identifying diamonds in the rough. And I'll say what I've said many a time in the past. If you're going to put confidence in a 0-star kid, or I think he's now rated as a 3-star, according to most sites since his commitment, if you're going to put trust in Iowa's offering a kid like that a scholarship, do it when it involves Phil Parker. And in this case, they see him as a DB. Phil obviously sees something he likes as a future safety. And would I be surprised at all if he ends up being a great one at Iowa? No. In fact, Iowa's got an opportunity to have a really good safety out of Chicago this year. I should say not safety, DB. John Nestor's likely going to be a corner. They got to get him on the field, though. I've heard nothing but good things about John Nestor. They already are utilizing Sebastian Castro, another Chicago native. So it seems like that DB pipeline out of the metropolitan area in Chicago is running deeper and deeper every year.
Sometimes I'm criticized in recruiting conversations for being a bit of a stars or rating snob. But to your point, I also trust if there's a track record with that particular program, head coach, coaching staff, and certainly Iowa, it would be interesting to go back and look at all their impact defensive players to see how many guys have had an offer sheet similar to what we're looking at with McPherson, or maybe even if they've had some Power 5 offers, they haven't been from the likes of the elites. And certainly they saw what they were looking for. They knew that they could develop it. They, in fact, did so and turned the player into, one of the best at his position in the Big Ten.
I think to narrow that down a little more specifically, and it would take some time, but, settle on a recruiting site platform and then look at as far as if you want to just draw a line in the sand and say guys that end up starting at least one full season. Okay, we're going to look at everybody who started at least one full season. What percentage of 0 to 3 stars, or you could say guys with no other Power 5 offers end up being a starter? What are those percentages, those numbers in comparison to guys who have other offers? I mean, I would assume it's not going to be on even level with guys who had a bunch of other. I mean, not everybody's swinging and missing is, I guess, my point. So, but yeah, I agree with that. And it's easy to bring up anecdotal evidence, examples. We brought up Josie Jewell the other day. Seth Benson's another great one. George Kittle's another great one. Now, maybe those guys had some Power 5 offers, but they were not highly touted. Jack Campbell's another one, didn't have many offers out there. But there are other examples. Brendan Diaz-Fernandez. He was one I remember when they recruited Brendan and got his commitment. First of all, I like Brendan a lot. Really nice kid. I'm frustrated by the fact that he graduated this last weekend, which is great to see him see out his academic career at Iowa. He's now transferring to Central Michigan, but he's a kid who didn't really have any other offers of note at all. Like, I don't even know if he had MAC offers. I had to go back and look at his recruiting list. I think he had like Lindenwood College or something. And I remember when Phil Parker offered him, I'm like, huh? But he was plagued by injuries. He worked his way under the two deep at a couple different points in his career. So I don't think you can use that as evidence against Phil Parker's philosophy and the science that goes into recruiting. Now, if throw it to the other side of the spectrum with the offense, we've brought up Dayton Howard a number of times. This is his second year in the program, so he's got time. It's not like the clock is ticking real fast on him, but he had no other Power 5 offers, FBS offers, FCS offers, D2, D3, NAIA, nothing. Dayton Howard reported no other college football offers. So he's a receiver. So I'm not asking people to have faith in that. It will be intriguing to see if Iowa can get him to a point where he meets expectation. But absolutely, it's always it's not an exact science. I think Kirk and Phil would tell you that, but there's reason to believe in Phil's philosophy.
I came across a video. No, let me correct myself. I did not come across it. A viewer sent me a video a couple months ago where somebody out there that does a college football channel that I've never heard of did an outstanding job of going through the numbers of recruiting and turning those recruits and the star rankings into NFL draft selections and NFL players. It was an outstanding look at various numbers and putting them in context. It's something like 60 times more likely that a 5-star will reach the NFL than a 4-star. But if you look at the numbers on the surface, people don't think that. But once you process how many 4-stars there are versus how many 5-stars, that's how much this slides down. You guys in Iowa, you live in a bubble. You live somewhere else in regards to recruiting and development. And it's impressive. I say that as a compliment.
We do, but Iowa's also not getting 5 stars. Like, you get a 5-star once every few years, maybe.
They typically flip, don't they?
Well, yeah, they don't get a lot of 3-stars. They don't get a lot of 4-stars.
I'm referring to our buddy Caden Proctor there.
Yeah, no, they don't get a lot of 4-stars, Mark. And I would be curious to look at. It's hard because you have such a larger number of 3-stars on the Iowa roster and past rosters than you would even 4-star recruits. But I mean, I could name off the top of my head. I could give you some 4-star kids that never saw the field at Iowa. And frankly, there have been some guys. I mean, injuries are a part of football. There have been guys who have been 5-stars that have been plagued with injury and have never panned out at Iowa. I'd have to go back a ways, but they are out there.
We've had Tom Luganbill on a couple times, the ESPN recruiting analyst and color analyst on the college games, and he firmly believes that if a 5-star does not start in college, that was their decision, that they just simply did not have the work ethic or did not apply themselves. So with McPherson, yes, helped his team to a state title as a junior, 855 yards rushing, 500 receiving, 11 total touchdowns. And again, they won a state championship in his junior season.
Real quick, can you read Doc P's, not his most recent comment, but the comment before? Am I misreading what he has to say here? What is he saying in this comment?
Brent's was that went to, is that Kansas State? Kent State. Kansas State, after a couple of years, did well down there, but left here after year 2.
What is he? He was a what? What are we? Blank. He's a 4-star. Okay. I'm like, I read that as I got you.
Oh, yeah. I did too. That's how I read it too.
I'm glad
he was calling him an expletive. Yeah.
I thought it was an expletive as well. He's right. Julius Brents was a 2nd-round draft pick this year for Kansas State. Remember, he played his first 2-3 years at Iowa and started very young, was long, really good grab. And I don't know what happened, why he got passed up at Iowa. I can't imagine that. I can't imagine that somebody, I don't even remember who passed him by, but I can't imagine whoever that was was better than a future second round draft pick. He's with the Indianapolis Colts. I'll be anxious to follow his career.
I am anxious, Corey, to hear your thoughts on McNamara and Sullivan, because now that Sullivan has been signed, I've had people ask me, and I'm sure 50 times more people have asked you about your opinion of the quarterback situation. I believe on one of our shows the other day, somebody asked me, one of our Hawkeye faithfuls, I forget who, whether this is going to be a true quarterback battle. I thought that was a good question. And I thought, okay, well, on one hand, I certainly believe that it should be. I believe just we're starting from scratch. We're going to August camp, and it's a quarterback battle. And I would throw Marco Lainez in there, unless maybe he performed at such a place during the spring that puts him just at such a disadvantage. That I understand. But between the two veteran quarterbacks who have both proven themselves to a certain extent as Big Ten quarterbacks, I would just declare it dead even, go to it. Something tells me that Kirk Ferentz believes and positions Cade McNamara as the starter, and he hasn't necessarily lost his job, and therefore it's going to take a monumental effort for Brendan Sullivan to unseat him.
Who said that?
I'm just conjecturing.
Okay, you're conjecturing. By the way, real quick, the Rook in the chat, Cooper DeJean past Brents. Okay, if that's true, I'd have to go back and I don't remember that. But if that's true, remember there are two cornerbacks on the field at all times. So if you have Cooper DeJean, who's a second-round draft pick, and a future second-round draft pick in Brents, you're probably going to put them both on each side of the field and make that work. Anyways, I digress.